All right, everybody. Thank you for being patient with me as I got through my story in Washington, coming off of another discouraging Giants loss. They got in the end zone this time, but they couldn't finish the game. Brian Daboll, icy glares at the podium in the press conference. Not a lot of answers about why they did not create a contingency plan for Graham Gano. Obviously, extremely frustrating for him, for the team, for the fans. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll both involved in that decision. Daboll said it was a collective decision, even though he said, again, you can put all the decisions on me. The fact of the matter is, I think the overall, full context of where the Giants stand now is they're 0-2 going on the road to Cleveland to face Myles Garrett and the Browns. Then they come back and they host the Dallas Cowboys, a team in this version of themselves they've had a ton of problems against, right, on both sides of the ball. And it doesn't get any easier from there. They go on the road to Seattle and on and on. And that's not to pile on the Giants, but it's to say, yes, they ran the ball better. Devin Singletary ran the ball pretty well today. They gained some yards on the ground. Washington playing man-to-man against against Malik Neighbors. Malik Willis got a big win today. But going man-to-man against Malik Neighbors, I was so confused during the game what Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn were doing. Neighbors was unguardable a lot of this game. Anytime they went man-to-man, all they needed to do was get Neighbors the ball within the first 5 yards from the line of scrimmage and let him make a move and cook. And it didn't have to be a big play to start. He could turn it into a pretty solid chunk or gain. Obviously, the deep passes to Neighbors didn't connect. He ends up with 18 targets. But even Singletary, who had a good game, he has a costly fumble in the third quarter. Just a lot of frustrating developments here. And Daboll really was not able to answer the crux of the matter about setting themselves up to fail with the kicker decision and with the Gano decision, not activating Jude McTamney behind him. And then that leads to them trying two unsuccessful 2-point tries, a missed extra point, and then at the end of the game, even though the offense drives down the field, they're not trying a field goal. They're going for it on fourth down with the game tied. And so, I think from a Giants holistic perspective, I think, Neighbors, of course, is a good player, right? He stands out as a good player. Drew Phillips has some attitude to him, the rookie corner for sure. And there were some hustle plays today. Jason Pinnock saved a touchdown on Brian Robinson's 40-yard run. Kayvon Thibodeau made a nice hustle play down the sideline to tackle Jaden Daniels out of bounds late in the game. And Drew Phillips made that hit, actually had to get checked for a concussion because of it, on Austin Eckler on the 27-yard screen pass. But, as Brian Burns said, basically, shooting ourselves in the foot F's us. The fact that he said, like, when we have somebody in a compromising position, when we have our necks on their throat, we need to snap it. We can't make one good play and think that it's going to snowball positively from there. We have to persist. We have to make those plays. I mean, the run defense, I told you guys in the preseason, is a major problem. You saw it here today. The defensive line pushed around by Washington. Absolutely. So let's start by telling you about the sponsors real quick. And again, thank you for your guys' patience. It took a little longer post-game today because sometimes the story in the game that I file right after the game for the Daily News is very similar to what it is coming out of the locker room and Brian Daboll's press conference. But Daboll's presser was so tense. I asked him about his job security. He talked about the Gano situation, and there was just a lot of intensity about the locker room and everything coming out of that. So definitely have to do the full-time job first and file to the readers and to the loyal fans in the New York Daily News. But then come over here to Talkin' Ball Live with Pat Leonard. We are cooking here. Over 100 of you already and counting, waiting to digest this game. We're going to go for about an hour. We're going to be efficient today because I'm going to hop on a train and get back up to New Jersey for Monday and continuing to unpack this in New Jersey. And whatever we don't talk about during this live chat, we will then carry over to tomorrow night, Monday night's Talkin' Ball Live, back home in North Jersey. where we will talk to Dable in a conference call tomorrow. And then we will continue to unpack everything that has to do with where the Giants go and how hot the seats are getting given the lack of results. So first, need to tell you guys about MyBookie. I'm sure you saw, but MyBookie and I have partnered up. I'm proud to be a partner with MyBookie, and they're having their 10th anniversary. So if you're looking to win this NFL season, bet anytime, anywhere on MyBookie. So we have Pat's Picks going on right now. If you go to the link in my bio on my YouTube channel, on X, on Instagram, wherever it is, you click on that link and you use the promo code Pat's Picks when you sign up, and you get your first deposit of $50 or more matched up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. If you're already playing with MyBookie, they actually have a new loyalty rewards program called MyBookie Plus. So the more you play, the more you earn, and then you go through tiers, you progress, you unlock promotions, exclusive promotions, giveaways, cash back in your account, all of that. I gave out some picks today. Some hit, some didn't. I thought Tyrone Tracy was going to be incorporated a lot more in this game. They did have him set up in the end zone for a 2-point conversion and had him getting some red zone looks. But, Devin Singletary ended up still being the bell cow for the Giants in this game. But I'll continue to dish out those Giants sprinkles each week, throw a couple bucks on a bet, that I think is going to hit. Might look like a long shot to others. But that's what's fun about MyBookie. And you'll see I'll be posting week in and week out. There's the Squares game on MyBookie. You can get big wins on the NFL. Go check that out. They have a lot of different, unique, and interesting ways to place wagers and really to just enjoy the games that you're already watching alongside of it. So go to mybookie.ag for that. Like I said, Pat's Picks is the promo code. And the link is, I believe it's in the show description here. You can also see it on my YouTube profile and on any of my profiles, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and X. So go check that out. We're also brought to you here, as you all know, by Boom Chaga. Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Also brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee, an all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar that is convenient for on-the-go professionals and parents. It takes me less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced coffee and only a minute more to make a hot coffee or latte from this all-natural concentrate. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. And I noticed, I think some ads posted or popped up on YouTube while I was talking about MyBookie. So just FYI, if you missed it, the MyBookie website, the link to get in and use that promo code, that is available on my YouTube profile, X profile, Instagram profile. Any of my profiles, there is a link to MyBookie. You click on that, you make your first deposit of $50 or more, and it gets matched up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip just at the cashier. Put in Pat's Picks. That's the code, Pat's Picks. No apostrophe, no anything, just all caps, Pat's Picks. All right. So because we only have about an hour here and change, I'm obviously always going to start with the super chats and the super stickers from the loyal followers paying in and supporting us. We really appreciate that. Then I'll get into the queue. Of course, we probably won't get through the queue doing only an hour this time since we're usually going 2.5. So if there's a question you feel like I haven't answered yet and you need it answered today, throw in a super chat on it and I will answer that question, promise there. Also, I will try not to repeat answering questions. So if I see one about John Mara and then I see one way down the queue about John Mara, I might not answer the second one because I already answered the first and I'm trying to prioritize. So let's start here. All right. So we have starting with our super chats, we got Mike O'Connor checking in. Mike O'Connor, thank you so much. By the way, guys, as you know, Talking Ball Live with Pat Leonard is brought to you by the Believe Network. On the Believe Network audio, whether you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you're listening to podcasts, you can get my audio podcast on the Believe Network. Also, they have a YouTube page as well. Check that out. And then my YouTube channel, PL on NFL, Talking Ball Live with Pat Leonard. Thanks to Believe. And also thank you to the New York Daily News, obviously, for sending me to these stadiums to cover the Giants and to bring this information to you guys coming out of the locker room, because that's where I am now. I'm sitting in the press box at Northwest Stadium looking at an empty field after coming out of the locker room talking to the Giants players and head coach Brian Daboll. Jonathan Ryan, what's going on? Thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that. If you have a question, guys, throw in a question with those super chats and I will get to them, as MJ did right here. MJ says, we lost Andrew Thomas last year and Graham Gano this year. Nor will they catch anyone running. So why not coach them to stop? Well, MJ, it's easy to say that, but if they're on the field, then their job is to try to prevent the other team from scoring points, right? It's just that kind of deal. That's actually, MJ, why I hear what you're saying. You're saying don't put them in the position to do that. But the fact of the matter is Graham Gano's on the field, and if he can be the last line of defense to stop a guy from scoring a touchdown after a kick, then you're going to want him to do it. Now, that's actually a reason, though, MJ. Like, while, Daboll was asked, why not just put someone else on kickoffs then for that reason? If you don't want him chasing a guy down on a kickoff, why not have Jamie do the kickoffs and Graham only do the field goals if you don't want him getting injured, right? It really not a satisfactory answer to that, obviously. But that's the kind of thing that pops into your mind. Or, like we said, why not elevate Jude McTamney, the rookie out of Rutgers? And they didn't have a good answer for it. He said, I'm not going to get into those conversations, those discussions. Obviously, it was a group conversation. But MJ, you're right. It's ridiculous not only to lose such key players, but to lose them in that situation where they're not doing their primary job. It's a really good point by you. Candyman, a loyal follower here. Always thank you, Candyman. Hunter says, thank you, Pat, for asking Daboll about his job. Yeah, you got it, Hunter. And what's interesting about that is, and I'm totally 100%, honest, and this is where I'm coming from here. When I'm asking Brian Daboll if he's concerned for his job there, I don't take any pleasure in asking him that. And I don't listen, people losing their jobs stinks. I get to know so many good people around here all the time, and then they get fired or they leave or whatever it is. And a lot of times there's some people who stay who may have deserved to be more accountable than the people who left, right? But that's just how the professional world works. It's how the NFL works, et cetera, et cetera. That said, I asked that question because it's relevant and pertinent. It's because the information I have, the information I have about where they stand and how they view this staff and the dysfunction of this staff, or just their inability to manage games, put a competent defense on the field today, for example. Their run defense was atrocious. Their situational and third down was terrible. Even the offense, this is considered a good day for the offense. They scored 18 points, right? This was an explosion of the offense, 18 points. So, the Giants, since that 6-1 start, have not been a good football team outside of the Colts game and the Vikings playoff game at the end of that year. Otherwise, it's been pretty much consistently, bad and losing football outside of some that stretch of, strong, frequent turnovers from the defense last year. But, as Daboll noted, yes, there were some strides today, mainly on the offensive side of the ball. Will say Washington's defense stinks. Now, the Giants still deserve credit for moving the ball and scoring points. But the bottom line is, where do they go from here? Because their schedule right now is Cleveland versus Dallas Thursday night on a short week, at Seattle versus Cincinnati versus the Eagles, right? So they just went 0-2 against the two worst teams that it looked like preseason in that stretch. Now, the Minnesota Vikings obviously just beat the San Francisco 49ers. Are they a better team than we thought? They definitely have really good coaching, that's for sure. But still, the week 1 loss wasn't just losing to a Vikings team that people didn't expect to be very good. It was getting embarrassed and not scoring a touchdown and getting booed out of your own stadium at home in your home opener, right? It was a total catastrophe. The team at least played football in week 2 against the Washington Commanders. But that said, what hope is there that this is going to get better? Like, in other words, for Daboll's job security, like what we're talking about right now, it's a pertinent question, mainly because, what if you start 0-3? What about 0-4? What about 0-5? And this is no longer year 1. Hey, we're rebuilding, right? That's not where we're at here. This is not year 2. This is year 3, where the roster looks a lot worse than it used to, and where the team is resetting again after going for it last year and failing, and the quarterback is being undercut. I didn't even get into that. Let me get into that really quickly. How incredible was it to see Adam Schefter put a headline and a byline and a story out this morning in week 2 about Daniel Jones's injury guarantee? How about that, right? That was something else. I mean, to see that come out so like officially, I mean, who knows where exactly, source guessing can be a messy game. I will say this. I feel like the Giants, especially under Joe Shane, have been like a proactive, aggressive PR strategy team, like trying to get in front of things. To me, it's hard for a headline like that to get out without some sort of blessing coming from high up in the Giants organization somewhere. I didn't like it. I think it sends a clear message, like greasing the skids for the benching, that it's like, well, we're sitting this guy down, but it's not because we don't believe in him or, whatever it is. I asked Daniel Jones about it. He says, I hadn't heard it. This is my first time hearing of it. I think my job is to play well and to put this team in position to win games, and how they handle that and what comes out, where it comes from, I don't know. That's up to them on how it's communicated. But my job is to play good football, put the team in position to win games, and focus on my job. I'm not in any control. I'm not in control of any of that. So Daniel always saying the right things, obviously, but All right, let's see. Memo, what's up, Memo? Memo says, do you honestly think out of the 32 NFL teams, is there one besides the Giants that would start Daniel Jones instead of their quarterback? Giants roster is not even top 30. That's a good question. Let's take a look at the teams that played today. So, well, the Raiders just beat the Ravens. Gardner Minshew. I mean, would you start Gardner Minshew over him? I think your overall point, though, is that continuing to hope for Daniel to be the clear answer is an uphill battle. I mean, he was not the reason that they lost this game. It was the mismanagement of the kicker. It was the defense. And, the defense made some plays, like I said, Jason Pinnock and Kayvon hustling, and they had some sacks, I think, from all guys who were like blitzing or chasing the quarterback outside. But man, oh man, I think they allowed 4 of 17 third down conversions. A lot of those were long. A lot of those were like long conversions, third and long conversions. That was really discouraging. And Mello, I think the reality here is this is going to get worse, and it's going to continue to get uglier. The locker room is just such a tense place. Team officials are pretty tense right now. I'm sure you guys saw. I mean, got some icy gazes in the post game from the head coach, me specifically. Probably because right after the game, I tweeted that it's hard not. What did I say? My tweet right after the game was, the Commanders did not punt today. Giants win. Washington 21, Giants 18 final. The Commanders did not punt today. Strong chance there will be a new regime in New York in 2025. So I'm assuming that that's where the stares and the icy gazes came from. But it's all right. I can handle it. It's part of the job. What makes people qualified for this job, in my opinion, is it's not just the ability to be critical. It's the ability to show up the next day or a minute later or 10 minutes later or a week later, whenever it is, when it's time to face the music, You stand accountable to your actions, your words, and your judgments, and your reporting and information. And I feel confident in understanding what the lay of the land is here. Jay Farry says, hey, Pat Leonard, much respect for the work you put in. Thanks, Jay. I think Daboll and Shane are gone after the season just gets harder. What is our dream job besides this BS? I think Jay, thank you for the super chat. And thank you for saying that you respect how hard I'm working here. I really appreciate it. You know what? To be honest, this is this season already early on, just because everything we're adding to kind of my plate and everything I'm doing on the YouTube channel along with the daily news. I've never been busier, but it doesn't feel like I'm overwhelmed busy because I love every minute of it, especially this. So you're wondering, with them gone, what is like the dream hires, I think is what you're referring to. My initial take was that, Will McClay from Dallas is somebody I would absolutely want to call and talk to as far as a general manager seat. I think you have to make the Bill Belichick call. You're definitely also looking at all of the offensive minds and the young coaches who are kind of, blossoming and growing right now in the NFL. I mean, obvious people like Kellen Moore is considered a head coach in waiting. I'm not saying he should be the Giants guy. I'm just saying that's a name that, you would think would come up in an interview, assuming the Eagles have a pretty good year. Bobby Slowick from Houston, I think, is an interesting one. That's one that kind of, to be honest, would be very high on my list, assuming the Texans, even hold serve on what they did last year. Obviously, Ben Johnson in Detroit. I mean, a little bit odd how he handled his situation last year, but clearly he's waiting for the right opportunity. So you'd want to talk to Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, Bill Belichick, Will McClay, definitely in the GM seat. There would be other names to add to that mix for sure, but those are guys that stand out to me early on. Candyman, what's up? Thanks, Candyman. Appreciate you. Obviously, we need to clean house, GM, coach, etc. In your opinion, is the assistant GM a viable candidate, or is he too close to Shane's philosophy? Candyman, in my opinion, not a viable candidate. I think he has been party to their entire team building process here. I'm sure Brandon Brown can have success in his career as he continues to grow and develop. But from what I understand about the dynamic there and from seeing how he folds into it, what was the comment in Hard Knocks when he said, I think he mentioned that he didn't know much about Neighbors as a person, and it was like at the combine this year. Thought that was a little strange. Assistant general manager, guy who's going to be a top 10 pick, guy who was possibly going to be the number one overall pick in the draft the previous year if he had come out in the draft. I felt that was strange. But yeah, no, based on my information, I would say not an option in my opinion. Though, of course, he could very well end up getting an interview and say the Giants could say, hey, we like this guy, we got him from the Eagles and we feel like he deserves a shot. That's obviously something you could do, is promote internally, but I would view it more as like, if he did help, it would be like on an interim basis in between regimes. Most illest. Yeah, nice. I like that. Most illest says, am I crazy or are we 2-0 with Wink as our defensive coordinator? That's an interesting point, most illest. I mean, you definitely saw today. I felt like, it was two different games when the Giants were on defense today. It was like when the Commanders were moving the ball down the field, there was a lot of Cliff Kingsbury out scheming Shane Bowen, or not a lot of adjustments from Shane Bowen. When they got in the red zone, I thought Kingsbury was overthinking things. They obviously were shooting themselves in the foot. They committed 5 false starts, Washington did, in the red zone. So if they don't commit those penalties, who knows whether they end up getting into the end zone instead of kicking all those field goals. But, credit to Bowen and the Giants defense in the red zone, at least, for not letting them in. Of course, they didn't allow a touchdown. Obviously, if you're looking to hang your hat on something, you have to try to feel encouraged about that. However, that said, You have to look at the full picture there. And Martindale, the fact of the matter is, he gave them a schematic coaching advantage week in and week out for most of 2 years. Of course, last year there were kind of team-wide, meltdown games, right, or bad games. But usually, even when those games happened on the defensive side, it started and stemmed from them being, a team that couldn't score on offense, and then the defense is always playing from behind, and so they're not able to rush the passer as much because the other team is able to run the ball more. So, no, I agree with you, Most Illest. I think that they're at a distinct disadvantage now compared to being at an advantage previous years. I mean, it certainly does not look good that they hired Shane Bowen, and when they did, the number one thing that Dable mentioned was that his run defenses were really good in Tennessee, and that this is the run defense we're seeing on the field. But does it look like Jones has lost something off his fastball? D-Kid, I do think he was placing some passes today, right? Like even the neighbor's throw was I think he was kind of dropping it in because he wanted to make sure he didn't leave it underneath to be tipped, and he knew he was open. So he kind of like lofted it up and in. I didn't have a problem with the way he threw the football a lot of the game. I do think the deep throws to Neighbors, it was like they kept trying to get that, and they just never hit it correctly. The only one that came close was kind of coming towards us. It hit Neighbors' left hand. I don't think it was fair to just call it like a pure drop, and it wasn't a bad throw either. It was just like everything was like a tick off. But the 3 and out after the fumble, there was the fumble by Singletary in the third, and then the 3 and out after that was a bad series. Like it's funny because on the one hand, you watch a game like this and you say, geez, like, is Daniel going to throw to somebody else, right? But like I asked Daniel about that, and like one of the things he said was, up. I felt like we had an advantage when we were going to him, so we kept doing that and tried to play the game with that matchup in mind, and he did a good job for us. So really, he was saying, listen, they couldn't guard him, so I kept going to him. Now, that said, there was a play on that 3 and out series where he had Neighbors underneath, and you could say, oh, why is he throwing to him so much? But then in that play, Neighbors is the guy uncovering underneath. Daniel tries to fit it in at the second level to Wan'Dale Robinson. He gets knocked down, incomplete, and they end up going 3 and out. So, as far as his fastball, D-Kid, I think what we saw today was, Daniel wasn't perfect. He was not the reason they lost the game. I don't come out of this game saying, man, another terrible Daniel Jones game. That's not how I feel about this. I feel like if they have a functional operation with a kicker who can make extra points and field goals, and and their defense is even just a little bit better, then they're a team that wins a game like this. But I'm telling you right now, I know Washington has some talent. Like Brian Robinson Jr. is a load to bring down, a tough running back, man. I love his game. You have Zach Ertz. He can still play, man. Zach Ertz can still play. He killed the Giants today. Robinson went, by the way, for 17 carries, 133. So that's 7.8 yards a carry. They had 215 rushing yards on the Giants. Zach Ertz, 4 catches for 62 yards, and all of them were big. Killer big completion there to Noah Brown against Cordell Flott late. Big dashes over on X right now, by the way, earlier. Noticing that Daboll was staring a hole through my forehead during the press conference. So that's cracking me up. All right, let me get back into the queue here for the questions. Remember, if you want a question or comment answered first or immediately, you purchase a super chat or super sticker, and I will be in the queue otherwise. But if you purchase a super chat or super sticker, I will go right to that. All right, let's see. D-Kit points out correctly, we scored 3 offensive touchdowns, gave up no touchdowns at all, and lost. Yeah, no, great work. The Commanders didn't punt all day, of course. Let's see. Chronicles actually feels differently. He says, Pat, you officially put yourself on the bad side of Dable. Come on now, asking about his job security in week 2 may be a bit far, and the way you asked was a little too far to the point. Yeah, Chronicles, I think, like I said earlier, but it's fine if you disagree, obviously. The reason I asked it is because it's born out of an understanding that that Dable knows that the early stretch of this season, he is coaching for his job. This is what is happening here. So, I understand why you're saying you disagree. And let's be honest, it is early. So you don't want that conversation to happen this early because they still have 15 games left. And it's like, well, where do we go from here? If that's the question and that's the conversation. But that's just my takeaway and information on where things stand. And I think it's a pertinent question now, even though it's tough to handle and stomach that, it's getting asked this early. I mean, I asked Daniel about, last week, and I asked Dable last week about potentially benching Daniel in that situation or considering a change in this game going into week 2 for the same reason. I mean, you saw, it's like, again, you could say that's unfair to Daniel, that's unfair to Dable. Well, someone could say that theoretically, but then you look at a leak coming out of, a national headline. Oh, hey, by the way, remember this injury guarantee if they bench him, right? So the lay of the land is that the odds are up against it for Daniel and the odds are up against it for Brian. So I'm just asking the questions I feel like need to be asked, but it's obviously fine for you to disagree. Joel says this offense needs a lot of opportunities to score more. Our defense allows a lot of clock burning and field goals. They don't complement each other well. Philosophy, game, players, coach don't work well together. Very well said, Joel. That is a great point. And that's what I said to Dable. I said, you mentioned offensive gains, but how do you build on them when your defense doesn't force a punt, right? And he said, well, that's complementary football. That's like one side can do better, but if the other side regresses or slips, then, we're back at square one here. So I think that's a great point, Joel. I mean, that's a great way of putting it. Even at the end of the game, not being able to get themselves out of a position where, there's no time left on the clock there. Like Washington's able to just run it down, kick it, and end it. You don't even get an extra try. Those are just situations that Brian Dable struggles to manage. So, but I'm not going after Brian Dable here too. Like I'm saying the whole operation, including Shane too. Like I'm talking about the organization here. Like in other words, like one of the things Dable stared me down about was asking right away, whose call was it not to bring up a kicker and just to go with Graham. And there were a lot of reporters talking over each other, trying to get questions in, and he looked ticked off and this and that. So it didn't get to the crux of it. So eventually I came back and I was like, Brian, what I'm trying to say is Joe Shane involved in that, or is that just yours? Because Dable was putting it all on himself. And he was like, well, no, it's a collective, decision. So that's, general manager, that's training staff, that's head coach. So, in that scenario, I mean, I don't know if it's clear to Dable or other people or not, but that's not a gotcha thing. That's me trying to say, who is all accountable to this, right? Because in my experience here, coaches typically take the fall when there's a lot of other people who are just as involved or accountable in the mistakes, right? And I know that's part of the job and they get paid for it, but I'm just saying that's, so I'm trying to be fair to him when I ask questions like that too, Yeah, D-Kit points out what I did. Where is this team going to find a win in the next 6 games? Browns on the road, Cowboys, Seahawks on the road, Eagles, Bengals, Steelers on the road. Yeah, it's a fair question. Jim says, not until our next game against Washington. D-Kit points out that all of those teams, except maybe the Bengals, have very good running games. Islanders 6 thinks that it was a ridiculous question from me for Dable about his job. Week 2, no kicker. They played much better. Just a tool trying to get likes on his page. Yeah, I mean, hey, that's your opinion, Islanders 6. I will say this. In this chat, in Talkin' Ball Live with Pat Leonard, I welcome disagreement. I think making it personal, like calling me names and stuff, I'm not really down with that. That's kind of like a Twitter X thing. So let's be nice. All right, let's see. Peterstown says, really? You score 2 TDs and give up none and still lose? Can't take this losing anymore. 3 TDs, right, as you mentioned. Matt says, Pat, I know most aren't laying this loss at the feet of DJ, but isn't it concerning how he rarely comes off his first read? Really watched him today, and it seemed to stick out. Thanks. Matt, that's a good point for sure. I do think there's a part of him that, as we've talked about, I do think there's a part of him that is used to taking, some too many hits, right? Like, especially last year. Like last year, Daniel didn't play well before he got hurt, and he owned that, and he said that, and he knew that. But we all knew that the offense had very little chance to succeed with the personnel they had, the offensive line, the lack of protection, all of that on top of all of that. So, I think by and large, to your point, Matt, one thing that did stand out to me today was him locking onto his first read today, in part, was due to the fact that Neighbors became like his go-to, gotta have it guy. And I didn't blame him for that. There was a time at one point where you could tell Neighbors was legit getting tired. So the drive that ended with the Wandale touchdown, that one throw to the left at the goal line where Neighbors and I think it was St. Juice to just kind of like batted it down. Neighbors was gassed. Like when Wandale scored, Neighbors took forever to get over to the other sideline while everyone was celebrating because he was tired because they were throwing him the ball every play, and he was their clear first option, and for good reason. I mean, Joe Witt Jr., the Commanders' defensive coordinator, was playing a lot of man today and leaving his guys on an island with Neighbors, and they could not guard him. They were giving him a big cushion. So that was resulting in a lot of those like short catch and runs because they were playing him just with one man over there and the guy was 10 yards off of him. So if you let Neighbors catch and make a move on you, like he's a good player. He's a number 6 overall pick. He's going to do it. I mean, listen, that's the positive, like the positive coming out of games like this and seasons like this. You try to hang on, what do we have for the future, right? So like a guy like Neighbors, obviously he's a player, right? He's a building block. He's a piece. Like I said, I like Drew Phillips, the slot corner. He's tough, hard-nosed. I like him. But the run defense, really bad. Personnel deficiencies there. Tired of watching DJ Davidson play football. Does not help them on the defensive line. One example. All right, we got another super chat here. Let's check it out. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Candyman says, BS, keep asking the tough questions. Thank you, Candyman. It's always interesting to me how differently people can interpret the same stuff, right? And that's okay, But like I'm just talking about how one person could say, that's a BS too early question. And then another person can say, I'm so glad someone asked that, right? It's like that's just how it is. And that's cool. That's why these are great. That's why we do this, to have those conversations, those constructive conversations. Most Illest says, glad you like my name, Pat, but why is the chemistry between Wandale and Jones always so off? Shepard was a similar wide receiver and they clicked more. That's a really fair question, Most Illest. Like the one play that stuck out to me in week 1 against the Vikings was the play where I think it was a 3rd down, and Daniel stepped up, and Wandale had sat down his route in like a pocket, and he had room to run. And Daniel thought Wandale was going to then kind of push his route upfield inside to the open space on a catch and run, and Wandale just stood there waiting for the ball on like almost like a stop route. And listen, that happens in the games, like miscommunications or one guy reads something and one guy reads another. But I think that's a fair point, Most Illis, is like especially a guy like that who's supposed to be your safety valve and who doesn't come off the field much. And, like look at great example is Zach Ertz for Jaden Daniels, right? Like Zach Ertz was a guy who, when they needed it, like Washington, it was like they didn't make plays all the time and all over the place. It was just when they needed to play, they made one. Memo again checking in. Thank you, Memo. He says Islanders is dead wrong, meaning the commenter. We love Pat and his content because he is a no BS guy, honest results, driven questions, and content. If you want gaslighting, go listen to Bob Papa and Paul Dottino. Memo bringing it in hot. Wow. Thank you for the support. Like I said, personal shots, anyway, coming from me, coming from anyone to me, anyone to anyone else in this chat, this site. Want to reduce that, Islanders. But Islanders, we do welcome people who disagree. Absolutely. Like Gabe Chronicles is in every one of our chats here, and he was disagreeing strongly as well. So disagreement is obviously welcomed. D-Kit says, friends who were at the game said the majority of our pass plays were two-man routes with max protection, which is why Neighbors was targeted so much. Yeah, no, through 2 games, they have prioritized protection, D-Kit, over all else. And the idea is Neighbors can go to work. Now, you could argue that he was overworked, right? Like I said, he was gassed. Did that result in him dropping a pass late that he wouldn't have dropped otherwise? I mean, he would, he's not blaming fatigue on that, but you want to and need to keep him healthy. Obviously, he got hit in the head by Frankie Louvu. That should have been a penalty. Was not. Got cleared from the concussion protocol, but DK, you are correct that, like I said, the Commanders were not changing their man with cushion on the Giants alignment. So the Giants just kept going to the well. Like it was very strange. All right, let's see. All right, we have about 20 minutes left in this Talking Ball with Pat Leonard Live. I know it's not as long. It's not going to be as long of a chat as we usually do post game. But like I said, anything that doesn't come up or that we don't discuss right here, right now, we will do on Talking Ball Live with Pat Leonard Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So for those of you who don't know, I do Talking Ball Live with Pat Leonard Mondays and Thursdays at halftime of Monday and Thursday Night Football. And we usually go 2 hours, 2.5 hours. They've been going over 2.5 hours lately, each one. And then after every Giants game, home and away, I do Talking Ball post-game live like I'm doing right now. Like I said, doesn't usually happen the way it did today with a longer post-game because there's a lot to change up about the game story and a lot to contextualize after the press conference with Daboll. So thanks for being patient. And like I said, if you have a question or comment that you definitely want to get in and fit in during this chat here, purchase a super chat or super sticker to make sure I see it. And I'm going to try to pick out the best comments in here as I go along to make sure I don't miss anything. Let's see. Peterstown said DJ had a better game, but still missed on some. And the balls, the drop, should have had that one. Malik, no doubt. Let's see. David says, thank you for holding Daboll's feet to the fire. Timothy says, the common thread to the Giants' incompetence the past 12 years is John Mara. He says, 2022 is a mirage. It's time for a qualified president of football operations. Until then, boycott Giants games. I am interested to see how the home crowd reacts as they come back to the Dallas game. Obviously, anything can happen. Maybe they beat the Cleveland Browns, but imagine them coming back to the Dallas game at 0-3. Given what week 1 looked like, think about that. All right, let's see. Tank Zappa says, how could Daboll have possibly known we would need a healthy kicker in a football game? Yeah, that's right. Let's see. Islanders says they win 27-21 with a kicker. The questions at a press conference should be more direct than, are you worried about your job? Too easy. I mean, they lost because they mismanaged the situation where they didn't have a kicker. In addition to the fact that, as somebody pointed out earlier, because the defense was not good and they didn't give their offense the ball enough, right? They allowed Washington to control the ball, control the game. So, a lot not to like. This Washington team is not good. Just going to tell you that. It's not good. Joel says, I believe Shane Bowen was the wrong hire for defensive coordinator. This defense still has big issues stopping the run. Yeah, I mean, Joel, and let's be honest, and this is not taking a shot at Shane at all. This is an objective reality. He was, at best, their fourth choice based on the reporting that I did and based on knowing the different candidates that they called and the relationships Daboll had with these different coordinators. Bowen was not the first choice. So, that's where they put themselves in. And I'm actually sitting in the boxes right now where Joe Shane was on the headsets for the first time last year. If you remember, that was my breaking news report in that feature on how everything went wrong last season. This was the first stadium where Shane went on the headsets with the coaches to monitor the dysfunctional operation going on. And obviously that resulted in Martindale resigning over not wanting to work here anymore. And that put them in the situation they're in. And Islanders, to be totally honest with you, the context of like, are you concerned about your job questions? It's based on, it's not just about this year. Like, this team has a lot of weaknesses and shortcomings in large part because of how the coach and the team and the GM, whether it was draft wise, whether it was staff management wise, they didn't have their hands around how to manage the team properly last year. And it's affecting this year. Jonathan Ryan says, if they bench Daniel Jones and he's not playing terrible, could Jones sue the Giants for bad faith with the injury clause? That's a really good question. Jonathan, thank you so much for asking that, because, I mean, I'm pretty sure that type of clause in a contract is governed and, protects the team in that regard. Like, in other words, that money kicks in as guaranteed if, that money kicks in as guaranteed if Daniel Jones gets hurt and doesn't pass his physical next year. So therefore he recoups it if he's injured and the team recoups it if he's not. So the team committed, what was it, $82 million guaranteed over 2 years, I think, something like that, to him. So it's not like he hasn't gotten paid handsomely by them and compensated. So my guess is, even if he tried that, the team, listen, they created that. The answer to you straightforward is, I don't know 100%. I'm just telling you, talking to a lot of people who work with contracts and roster management in the NFL, that's the type of thing that there are other situations that have happened with before, and both sides are protected. Both sides protect themselves because one side's getting the flexibility, the other side's getting a lot of money up front, like Daniel did, if that makes sense. Joel says Daboll might lose his job because Wink is not here forcing turnovers and 3 and outs. I don't see how this team can win any games. In the short term, I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's just a fair question to say, like, where is this team winning right now? Let's see. David says Gano was injured all week and he knew that. Yep, his hamstring acted up last week at the end of the game. They all knew, Peterstown said. Well, here's the thing. This is one thing that Daboll has to understand. You can't go up there and say he didn't hurt his groin, he hurt his hamstring. Like, your lower body is connected. Your muscles are connected. He's like, well, I'm not a doctor. Well, I'm not either, but I can tell you that if if my groin hurts and I pull a muscle in my groin and then I try to sprint after someone, there's a chance that, it's like that, the arm bone's connected to the, whatever, the shoulder bone, whatever that silly song is for kids. It's like you learn that very early on, like it's all connected. It's not rocket science here. Just because on the injury report it says now it's his hamstring, not his groin, like you saw that he wasn't full strength. These things, do connect to each other. So anyway, it's a silly debate because it's obvious, but let's see. Benji says Shane Bowen's defense is no good. Giants Blue Blood says, who is to blame for the defense allowing 240 yards on the ground in the first 2 weeks? Is it Bowen? Because from what I know, the Titans were pretty darn run good versus the run while he was there. Well, it's Bowen. How about, Dre Patterson, defensive line coach? I mean, what's going on here? The defensive line, not big difference makers in this game. right? Let's just face it. The D-line did flush the quarterback into some pressures and sacks for sure. But in the run game, they got pushed around. They got moved around. Holes got open. Dexter Lawrence had a loud game in week 1. He did not have a loud game in this one. Let's actually check the stats on Dex there. Dex had 4 tackles, no QB hits, no sacks. Drew Phillips, Jason Pinnock, and Bobby Okereke all had 2 tackles for a loss. Pinnock had 2 sacks. Okereke, Phillips, and McFadden all had 1. So the D-line did get some pressure. Then those guys cleaned up on the outside, or those guys, bringing some blitzes and pressure, which was something Bowen did need to do. But the D-line, I look at the D-line, I look at Dre Patterson in addition to Shane Bowen. I also look at Joe Shane there. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people in this chat right now who have pointed out with no help from me that this team needed to draft a D tackle. They needed to add more players at that position. They're not good enough behind Dexter Lawrence. They don't have talent or depth at that position. Let's see. G-Men says, we were lucky to even be in this game. Washington's penalties in our red zone killed them. If Washington's offensive line was even half competent in the red zone, we'd have been smashed. I agree with that. That's what I think is they had 7 field goals. So let's just say let's say they scored 3 touchdowns on those drives instead of field goals, right? It was very close to being that, I think is G-Men's point, which I agree with. I also think, Cliff Kingsbury, it was those penalties would happen and then he would throw it instead of run it. He should have just kept running it. The Giants were not stopping the run. Dave G says our defensive coordinator sucks so far. Jacob says Pat is the GOAT. Appreciate that, Jacob. Jacob always reminds you guys, thank you. But remember, hit the like button while we are live. That really helps the channel. That drives the algorithm, tells all the Giants fans out there that I'm here, that we're here, and that they should join now or next time. If you're listening right now on the Believe Network on audio, Talking Ball with Pat Leonard podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple, wherever, try to join us next time on the YouTube channel. It's PL on NFL. I do this after every Giants game and also Mondays and Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. Remember, as I said, sponsored here by MyBookie. Go to the link in my YouTube profile or on my X profile, any of my social media profiles, PL on NFL everywhere, Instagram, TikTok, or P Leonard NYDN on X. Click on the link there and put in the promo code PATSPICKS, PATSPICKS, and that will get you a 100% match on your first deposit of $50 or more, all the way up to $1,000, and plus a $10 casino chip. So mybookie.ag, it's their 10th anniversary. They have risk-free Thursdays, weekly no sweats. Sign up now, cash in on a double deposit, or cash in, double deposit bonus. Right, exactly. You get a 100% match. Don't wait. Available for a limited time. For those of you that have been playing MyBookie already, they've got something for you too. A brand new loyalty rewards program in MyBookie Plus. It's simple. The more you play, the more you earn, and you progress through the tiers, unlock exclusive promotions, giveaways, and cash back in your account. MyBookie, bet anything, anywhere, anytime. Also, buy Estate 98 coffee. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. And buy Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order, and if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Tank Zappa says we were essentially in a prevent defense on the last drive. Flott gave their wide receiver about 15 yards of cushion on a reception that crossed the 50. Yep. Ken says Pat is taking names and kicking asses. Drip Kid says, why are we always lining up in 12 personnel with all those speedy wideouts and never threw a pass to a tight end? Yep. Hey, you guys are all making great points. Jacob says, Pat, has there ever been a situation that a reporter gets cut off by Giants? Feels like after today, Ronan might be close to that happening. Jordan was not getting the ire of Brian Dable. That was me. So Maybe you saw some things happen with Jordan too, but definitely it's not even personal. It's just tense all around the Giants right now. Locker room, staff, everybody's uptight. Coach. Elias says, Pat, I can't believe this is the second game we didn't have a kicker on standby. Right, exactly. This happened twice. Sick of this staff costing us games. Fire Dable, get me Clint Kubiak or Ben Johnson. Dave Z says, sucks about not having Gano, but Slayton dropped a 2-point conversion, and that damn defense couldn't get off the field if their life depended on it. Bandit says, sucks because I want Arch Matting, but I don't think we can wait that long. Dave says, this team is just a mashup of players fitting different schemes, no real direction or identity. That's well said. All on Brian Dable, unprepared, says Steven. Again, with no emergency kicker. Kicker could have made an actual PAT. We probably win. Yep. Let's see. Jonathan says, better teams are going to score touchdowns on us. That defense was not good today. Did Washington even punt today? They did not. 7 field goals on 7 drives and no punts. Hard to believe. Hard to believe. Right? How is that possible? How is that possible? Won't be long before Bowen is going, says Peterstown. Peterstown says, I could see the Maras firing Dable and making Kafka the interim. That's potentially on the table if that happens for sure. Elias says also, Pat, is it uncommon to fire a DC after first year? No, not if their defense is atrocious. Let's see. Elias says, does Shane have any involvement with roster management elevation? I want to know who is most responsible for the kicking situation. Yeah, so Dable took it on himself, but then I said, because I know throughout this regime and this operation, Shane is involved in those conversations. Like, kind of like Howie Roseman is involved in everything. Shane's involved in everything here. And Dable eventually admitted, yeah, it's a collective, right? So it's a conversation between a lot of people. It is Dable and Shane. It's also Ronnie Barnes and the training staff. From understanding how the organization works, that is typically the way it goes. So I think you need to put it on everybody. You need to put it on both of them, Shane and Dable for sure. But also training staff. I mean, what are we doing? Like don't you have to get an injured player off the field so your team can win? Protect the coach from himself, maybe? I don't know. Protect the GM? I don't know. Dave Z says, I'm tired of this team losing. No amount of medium Pepsis can fill this. Joey B points out, what a weird game. Let's see. Giants blue blood, as you guys were waiting for me, says, did Dable get to Pat? Should we be worried? That's funny. British Gridiron says, awful officiating again. Oh, they were just throwing flags left and right all over the place. Holding call on Drew Phillips was shocking. Numerous holds on Dexter, nothing called. Yeah, it seemed like Ertz felt like it was an obvious call, but then I know some people saw angles. They said it wasn't a good call. But, Washington had 5 false starts called in the and they were all legitimate, but in the red zone. So Giants got some breaks. Mike says, Pat, enjoyed your post game since I found it last season. Probably already asked or answered. How common is today's NFL to carry 2 kickers on game day? It used to be common for kickoff field specialists. I think teams don't typically do it, but it's a different situation when your kicker is injured, right? If you know your kicker is injured, it's strange to not go in with a backup plan. It almost in that situation hurts or harms the Giants that they have confidence in Jamie Gillen to help them out and make those kicks, if that makes sense. Like if they didn't have the confidence in Jamie like that, then they would, maybe more obviously just go and pull McTamaney up, but huge mistake. British says, I don't understand why they didn't go for 1 on the last TD to go up 4, and why not attempt a field goal on the last drive. I know. Dable just abandoned that after he missed the first extra point is what it looked like to me. Patrick says, remember when the Giants used to win games? Good times. A2Z Me says that because I am late, I have to live stream past midnight. That's funny. Yes, Elias. Drew Phillips was a positive, one of the only Shane draft picks that has been an impact player since day one. That's a fair point, Elias. I do like him as a player. Let's see. G-Man wants to know if they kicked me out of the press box yet. It's coming. We have about 7 minutes left here. A2Z Me says, feel bad for Gano just when he thought the injury thing was behind him. Oof, yeah, no doubt. Michael actually thinks Daniel Jones didn't play well. It was Neighbors that lifted him up. Well, Daniel was basically finding Neighbors in catch and run opportunities. And he knew that was his best move. So that's what he was doing. But yeah, no, listen, this team's in bad shape. Intel says it's over. Francis said, how was today's clock management? Not good near the end of the game. There were some things the Giants could have done late in that game to maybe try to keep some time on the clock to get the ball back, and did not. Let's see. Neighbors can't be the only offensive weapon. If not for Commanders' red zone penalties, they dropped 40+ today. Bangkok Baseball says, Pat, Shane Bowen is horrible. Titans fans were actually happy when he left. Now I understand why. A2Z Me says, when your defense can't get off the field, you're going to have a long season. Burns and Thibodeau are just collecting paychecks out there. No impact on the game. Let's see. Intel says they're going to go 0-3. Omar says, Pat, this is so frustrating with this ineptitude. When is Mara going to get it right? Good question. Intel says we need to talk to Joe Shane. I agree. He's as much a part of this as anything. Candyman says, Pat, obviously we need to start over coach and GM, but in your opinion, do you do it sooner or later? Any advantage to pulling the trigger now? Maybe you just ride it out and do it at the end of the year, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. So, it's too tense. The building's just in an ugly place right now from my vantage point. It's just in a really bad spot. Let's see. Bangkok says, at least we have a high draft pick. Carson Beck, anyone? Let's see. Ken was talking about Chargers under Harbaugh. We were talking about earlier, probably referring to a head coach who's getting things going in the right direction. Intel says, I will not be blaming Dable for the season. It's time for Joe Shane to explain himself. Juicy Juice thinks Daniel Jones played well. Solving says, who gets the biggest slice of pie for today's loss? I think it's Joe Shane and Brian Dable, just on the roster management as well as the defense. Because listen, the defense problem goes back to running out your really good and experienced defensive coordinator. That's where it starts. And I told you guys in the preseason that the run defense was a problem. And holy cow, was it a problem today? Bangkok thinks it's on Dable. OG, what's going on? Good to see you. NY2PA thinks the Giants will not win a game again until they play Washington and Carolina. So Ken says, Chargers under Harbaugh already have an identity, drafting Alt over Neighbors and being a physical running team in 2-0. What is our identity exactly? Ken, great point. In fact, any of you who haven't seen it yet, maybe last week we did, coming off of the game against Minnesota, we talked about what exactly is the Giants' identity on offense. They don't have one without Saquon Barkley. And they did run the ball better today with Devin Singletary. He had a pretty good day, but had a really costly fumble there, right? So, so I think to your point, that's one problem that a lot of people have with the Giants team building. They, people around the league think that the Giants are just collecting talent and not building a team. Let's see. A2Z Me says of the Gano running sprinting topic, Pat McAfee shaking his head in disapproval of this topic. Kickers are athletes. Yeah, right. Exactly. Hunter says 18 points could have been 25 with a kicker. Elias says 18 points on offense being explosive is because of our low time of possession. No, and Singletary fumble. Yes, that's true. Yeah, right. Like if they had more opportunities against this Washington defense, they could have scored more points. Yes. No, that's fair. That's you're right, Elias. Barb wants Bill Belichick. James says we have a quarterback who can't throw for 200 yards. Where was Hyatt? It's tough sledding right now. Hyatt, only 11 snaps in this game. Did he have a target? I don't think he did. I do not remember one. Neighbors, Slayton, Robinson, and Singletary. 4 receivers targeted. Daniel Jones threw 28 passes. 18 of them were to Malik Neighbors. Wow, what a split. Okay. Niger says Gillen messed up the kickoff. That's why he doesn't do it. Well, yeah, no, he messed up one of them, first of all. Yeah, second of all, of course, Niger, you don't want your punter doing the kickoffs. But I'm saying, there's got to be some kind of contingency to knowing that your kicker's hurt. You need a solution, right? To try to avoid the situation that happened today. That was my point. Let's see. All right. My alarm's going off. My Uber's going to be here soon. So any other questions that definitely need answering, please get them in now. Let's see. I'm running through the queue here. Gino says there's talent on the offensive side of the ball. The team is horribly managed. Simmons barely seeing the field versus a mobile quarterback. Yeah, let's see. How much did Simmons play here? 1 second, everybody. Just getting a phone call here. Hang tight. All right, let's see. Team is hard. Simmons. Isaiah Simmons had, let's see, 14 snaps on defense. Yep, not enough. Gino says Brian Burns has been MIA since signing. A2Z Me says, good for you, Pat, standing up earlier. That's why your base is growing. Giants 34 says Commanders defense is trash, and we should not have had to punt on that defense. Yeah, right. Let's see. Dable needs to find out that this is not going to be accepted by the fan base, Evan says. Jay Farry's wanted to know my dream job. I got you. Okay. My dream job. The one I have right now is my dream job right now. I just want to continue to do more television while I cover the NFL and continue to grow with you guys is where my mind's at right now. Yeah, Strider upset with Dable's decision with Gano as well. NYOG wants to know who will want the Giants job other than Bill. It's starting to look like a career killer. Yeah, fair question. That's part of the reason why Belichick, if he's going to take this job, it has to look different. It has to look different, like the organizational structure. Let's see. We see some critical people here. Andre says they couldn't stop the run with Wink either. Terrible defensive coordinator, says J-Fed. Wow, geez. Holy cow. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that their defense was what was holding them up the last 2 years. And like I said, we've talked about this before. In 2022, Dable and Martindale making the individual game plans and the defense and offense complementing each other. Martindale is a very good coach. There were games where, yes, the run defense, they gave up some run defense, that kind of stuff. But the defense was good, and he's a really good coach, in my opinion. Vish, great to see you. I'm interested to see if Mara wants to clean house. I do think it's coming if the results don't change. Jonathan says if they bench Jones and he's playing not bad but good enough, and they bench him because of the clause, can he sit? Oh, yeah, you asked that, right? Yeah, good question. Jenna says it was a great question, Pat. It's not early. Look at the season last year from start to finish, right, about Dable's job. Exactly. Look at the garbage offseason. Look at his terrible drafts. Look at his sideline decisions. Yes, exactly. It's not just about this year. Great point. Strider says nothing wrong with Pat's question, but as a coach, you need a backup plan if a kicker gets hurt. Let's see. What else am I missing here? All right, guys. Remember, here we are sponsored by MyBookie. MyBookie, bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Get your wins, risk-free Thursdays. MyBookie Plus, if you're already a member, it's a new loyalty rewards program. Go to my link in my bios and all my social channels. Click on the mybookie.ag link there, and then enter the promo code PATSPICKS, PATSPICKS, and you get a 100% match on your first deposit. $50 or more up to $1,000, including a $10 casino chip. Also brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee. Convenient, all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar for professionals and coffee drinkers on the go. Takes 10 seconds to make Estate 98 iced coffee. Go to estate98.com/talkingball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. And we're brought to you here by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink. Natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants, heart-healthy compounds. You can pour it in any of your favorite drinks and feel the difference. I feel a post-workout energy boost with it. It lowers cholesterol. It has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Daniel says the Giants are the worst team in sports. Ouch. Tommy says health and wealth to all. Thank you, Tommy. David says Daboll has no plan, just concepts of a plan. What a reference. What a comment. We will end on that. Sorry for this being shorter, but quick road trip, getting on the train back to New Jersey. We will do Talkin' Ball live with Pat Leonard again Monday, halftime of Monday Night Football. We will go for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever you guys want. And I will answer the questions that did not get answered tonight. And we will also continue to forecast what this means for the organization as I do more reporting on the stakes and how quickly things could happen and where it goes from here. Thank you, everybody, for being here on the Believe Network, on my PL on NFL YouTube channel. Thanks so much for being patient as I came out of the locker room talking to Daboll and getting those icy glares from the Giants head coach. But I'm here to bring you all the information I can. Check my coverage on the New York Daily News website and on my X account, PLeonardNYDN. And like I said, see you tomorrow night, Monday night, Talkin' Ball live with Pat Leonard, halftime of Monday Night Football. And tomorrow, Monday afternoon, look for an episode of First Down with Benny Fowler, where I get together with the Super Bowl 50 champion, and we talk about all of the action in the NFL, not just the Giants. Take care. Thanks so much, guys. See you next time. Here from Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland. Signing off on my way to the Uber to the train.